We can get started. Hi everyone. Good morning. And thanks for everybody that's returning. I see a lot of familiar faces. And for those of you who are new, welcome to this space. Just a little about the Operational Workforce Planning series. It's a 5-part virtual training related to high-level agency operations and staffing needs to align with current and future objectives related to the Louisiana Crisis Response System implementation. And the series is open to both current and potential crisis response system providers. And the series is put on by us at the Center for Evidence to Practice, and it's led by Haylee, Middleton, and Poehling that some of you all know, and some of you all will meet today. And this is session number 4 of the 5, and it's titled Keeping the Staff. And so this session is designed to provide tips and considerations related to workforce retention. The session will be recorded, and if you stick with us till the end, you'll get a certificate of attendance once you complete the feedback that I will also put out in the end. And in the chat, I'll drop 2 links. One is to sign up for the next session or to see recording of previous sessions if you weren't a part of those, or if you would like those materials. And then the other link is about how to apply to the mental health crisis response training and become a provider under the Louisiana Crisis Response System. And so I will hand it off to Haylee and Kat. Thank you, everyone.
So welcome, everybody. This is series 4. Many of you have been with us the whole time. So thank you for attending and taking time out of your day to, I don't know, just like further some knowledge, hopefully, on onboarding, retention, hiring, all the things that we've covered, workplace culture. And so we just welcome you to today's training. We're really excited about today's training. We have an interesting take, I think, on keeping the staff and retention, and some good information to share today. So like Hashima said, my name is Haylee Middleton, and I work with LSU Evidence to Practice, and we help train and coach the mobile crisis response providers. And so some of you know us, and then if you're interested, if you apply and start providing that service, you will definitely get to know us then. But like I said, we're excited to have you today, and I guess I can let Kat introduce herself.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kat Poehling. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, board-approved clinical supervisor, and we've been doing this work together for some years now, and I love that we're getting to put this on. We're definitely taking a lot of things that we've heard through the training and through coaching sessions from you all and from other people in your position about what some of those pain points are. So hopefully you get some relief with those, some answers, or some new interesting questions.
Absolutely. So for the sake of time, we'll dive right in. So if this is your first time joining us, this is actually a really great session to join in on. Well, all of them are, but that may be a biased opinion. But because we are going to do some recap and some connections today to other things that we have previously discussed. And so I think that y'all may see some information that you're like, oh, I remember that from last session. It's just because it's important. We want to reiterate it, and we want you to really be able to take it away and use it. And so we still have some people joining, which is awesome. All right. So welcome. No stress. You haven't missed anything. We're jumping right in. Okay, so some things that we're going to cover today, you can see them on the screen, but I'll run through them quickly. We're going to talk about psychological safety. We're going to do a little deeper dive than we did last time. Professional development and advancement, the importance of that, and the importance of employees knowing that that's a possibility. Burnout and community care, which is such a hot topic in mental health and behavioral health. And then recognition, the need for it when it comes to retention, supervision, and coaching. And then we're going to talk a lot about situational leadership.
All right, so you might have attended the session on workplace culture. And this really goes in a lot to retaining people. So you might hear some repetition from that, because a good workplace culture is going to help you retain people. And I love this idea that retention is just beyond keeping the staff. We really want to create this environment where everyone feels valued and supported. The work that you all do and that your teams do is incredibly challenging. So how can they continue to do that while feeling good about it and healthy? And so one of those things you might hear repeated, as Haylee mentioned, is about psychological safety. So we touched on this in workplace culture, and this is incredibly important as a foundation to retaining people. If they don't feel psychologically safe, they're going to leave. And while they're there, and sometimes people stay while feeling psychologically unsafe. And those are sometimes some pain points because they're not operating from a great place within their nervous system. So we can do that by fostering inclusive, supportive, and mission-driven environment, really connecting back to the why we're here. And so that goes for not just the team and the staff members, but supervisors and leaders. We have to all be on board with what we're here to do. People that come to this work, especially crisis work, they're very passionate and they're motivated by alleviating suffering in the community and in people. So one of the ways we can encourage psychological safety and build this culture of it is by encouraging open communication and feedback. And we want to be really thoughtful about how we do that and how we frame it. Sometimes we think we're doing really good at having open communication, but if we don't have this foundation of safety, then people might not be willing to speak up. So having multiple avenues for people to be able to report things, to share their concerns or ideas. So that could be in like a group setting, like a meeting, but also having asynchronous ways to share that, whether that's an electronic idea box or even a paper mailbox somewhere in the office, where people can share things anonymously when they don't feel good about doing that in person. And having a true open door policy. So having time when people can drop in and when you're going to welcome them. We all might have like an open door or maybe even an open office plan where there are no doors. But how do you really welcome people in when they approach you? How do they know when it's a good time to engage in these conversations? So making time for it and then being physically and emotionally present for that conversation. And promoting transparency and fairness in decision making. We'll talk about in just a little bit about some leadership styles, and I come from a very much so a framework of democratic workplace where people have a hand in decision making when it's possible. So we all know as leaders, there's a lot of decisions that we have to make, or there may be legal situations, liability, but allowing people decision making when that's possible. This can be as simple as one time I had somebody that I supervised who just really wanted this special pen, and it was kind of expensive. It wasn't that throwaway ballpoint pen, but I bought him a not a case, but like a big package of them. And he was just blown away, right? It can be something that simple for folks. And thinking about psychological safety, somebody once gave me feedback that in, again, a very fast-paced mental health environment, I needed to check in with a staff member about something. And I was like, hey, can we meet like right now? What was her thought process when she got that text? So if I texted you and I'm your boss, right? And I say, hey, can we meet right now real quick? A little anxious. Why are we anxious, Brittany? Because I don't know what's going to happen, right? Feeling like I'm in trouble. Oh no, we got to meet. Ooh, I don't want to meet with the boss, right? What's going to happen? Yeah. And so luckily, this person had an amazing ability to advocate and shared that with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, did not mean that. Just needed to check in about this client thing. But I will make sure to give some context next time I need to meet real quick. Hey, can we meet real quick about the da, 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 right? Something as small in that can really create psychological safety. So offering professional development and enhancement. And a lot of times people may be getting all the CUs they need through required trainings. So you have to go through the crisis training in order to get certified to participate in this service. And that provides plenty of CUs. But we want to offer professional development that's also meaningful in people's individual professional goals. A lot of organizations make a professional development plan, and really supporting people in that. So, are we making a plan and then not having the resources or tools to help people succeed in following up in this plan? Are we offering CUs, but these really don't have anything to do with the person's professional aspirations and where they want to go? So talking to people and making individualized plans to support them, thinking about creating a professional development fund that people can either apply for or a small amount that can be offered to everyone to seek outside training that can help them with their professional goals. We can also allow people to train on the job and learn new tasks. Um, so people, for different reasons, may be licensed in one way, or there may be some limitations of what they can do. But thinking about what is possible, what else can somebody who's interested in developing leadership skills do? This is huge, and having a formal ladder to leadership can really help people understand where they are in the organization and see themselves there in the long term. When people can't see that, they often leave because they feel like they've hit the ceiling or they're really confused about what it is they need to do to move forward.
And some interesting data. So there was a survey essentially, and it says that 94% of employees that leave their current employer would stay if they felt that employer was invested in their long-term learning.
So just imagining how much time, money, and effort we spend replacing people when we can get them to stay. All right, this is a huge one, and it might not be something that's as talked about. I know we've all heard of self-care. If you've done the training, that's a mandatory module. But what is this community care? And so something we have to be really mindful of in our ethics and our practice is that self-care isn't going to do it all, right? People can't just rely on taking care of themselves because that can sometimes further the burnout. We need a supportive environment that comes both from the supervisor, leadership, administration, and within. So creating a culture of teamwork where we can support one another when we're feeling down, however that looks. So if somebody's sick and needing to rest and take the day off, or if they're just struggling, maybe they've had a really difficult interaction with somebody they're supporting or outside of work, how can the team come together and we can support one another? And so this can look really varied, right? We want to engage in preventative community care. So having fun activities that we'll talk about on the next slide, and ways to appreciate each other, as well as what do we do when somebody's out? What is the plan so that other people aren't being burdened? But this is an expectation. We know what we're going to do, and it's all shared in people's equal abilities. All right, so this might be my favorite slide, and I have so many stories to go with all of these that maybe we'll get to towards the end. and maybe hear from yours. But for time, we're going to keep rolling. So within recognition, we want to include formal and informal opportunities for recognition. So this means as formal things like having an employee of the month or different kinds of accolades we can give folks. One time I created superlative awards, and so we designed the categories and voted on each team member that would go in that award. So this can be like the most optimistic, the best at de-escalating, right? The most timely, right? Thinking about what are the strengths of your team and recognizing that for people. Those can also be those informal small things. So I had a psychiatrist I used to work with that would give everybody he interacted with, the clients and the team members, sticky notes with positive affirmations on them. And they were all individually tailored. It was just amazing. And so one day, everybody on the team got together. We got sticky notes from the office, all different kinds, and covered his office in affirmations. Everybody in the hospital did a sticky note of a positive affirmation or a strength of his. So that's something we could do to really give somebody a boost at one time, or just one sticky note or one thank you card, recognizing folks. Also celebrating milestones and achievements. So when people do advance in their career, whether that's a license, a certification that they've gotten, or maybe a really high effectiveness of the team, celebrating those, having that pizza party along with all the other things that we're going to be doing. Although one time that I'm thinking about, we did the superlatives. We also did a crawfish boil and got a bunch of crawfish from Cajuns. Um, Really simple things like that that bring the team together.
Kat, I had an example that's kind of a double whammy in this area. So we initiated an employee spotlight. Like you were talking about, like an employee of the week, but we do an employee spotlight, and it's a social media post. So it's their headshot or picture of their choice. And then it's just essentially about them and why we're highlighting them. And we post it on social media. And so just so y'all know, those are also our most liked, shared, and clicked on, I guess, post. So not only is it great for the employee and recognition, but it's also great for our company and advertisement. So it's getting it out there that we have a great workplace culture, and it's building people to essentially come and apply to work for us, or families that we serve that may need our assistance. It's really doing all the things at one time.
Yeah, what a wonderful way to advertise your services and your workplace. Because don't I want to work at a place that celebrates people? That's a huge green flag. Right, and we're not going to get very deep into this because we have a whole next module on it. I hope we see you all for, but supervision and coaching. So making sure that you've got regularly scheduled sessions where you're meeting with people. So having them pre-scheduled, make sure to build in that psychological safety. So I know where they're going to be, when they're going to be, and I know what our agenda is. Also having empathetic listening. Ooh, I misspelled that. Sorry. Listening and constructive feedback. So we want to be there both to support, to make people feel heard, and to offer constructive ways to continue to develop and overcome challenges that they're having. And then goal setting and accountability. So helping them make goals for how they're going to continue to grow, become more effective in their role, and maybe use that ladder for leadership. And then holding them accountable to do the things they said they were going to do. Um, there are a lot of leaders out there that we'll talk about the different styles in just a moment, who maybe have these conversations and set goals for people, but don't hold them accountable. And that's really a disservice to everyone, to the team, the organization, and the staff member. So accountability is a huge part of that supervision and coaching.
Awesome. So just for a second in the chat, I'm going to post a link, and I want all of y'all to make sure that you can see it and go to it, because on our next slide, we are going to take a quick leadership quiz before we ever get started in talking about the different types of leadership. So I don't influence any of your natural answers, okay? We're just going to take the quiz. So if you can follow the link in the chat, if you'll scroll down just a little bit there on that webpage, there will be a place where you can take the quiz, and it takes around 3 minutes. I'm going to give y'all 5, maybe. We'll see. If you get done, post in the chat that you're finished. But we'll try to give you a few extra minutes to get to the website, scroll down to find the take the leadership quiz. Somebody gave me a thumbs up, so they do see the link. Maybe, hopefully they're on the link. Those who are assess the needs of their team and adjust their style accordingly. And does that not fit so well with the training? For those of you who have gone through mobile crisis response training, does that not fit so well with how we approach service with the individuals that call 988 and are receiving mobile crisis? So it fits well with person-centered care. I feel like there's definitely parallels that can be drawn here. If y'all want to drop those in the chat when you see something that corresponds, for sure do that. So I want to give some hopefulness to retention here. So an analysis of 34,000 responses, right? Found that 75% of the reasons for employee turnover can be prevented. And that made me feel very hopeful in a time where retention and turnover are such a topic of conversation, so much that we're doing this workforce development series. 75% of the reasons people said they left their current employer were preventable. One of those reasons is around feeling connected to your manager, boss, supervisor, whatever word we want to use, right? So it says that studies show that the positive manager-employee relationship has a significant impact on an individual's decision to stay with a company. We've all heard the saying, or most of us have heard the saying, people leave managers, not jobs. And that's what we're walking into with this situational leadership. And it says if an employee has a good relationship with his or her boss, then the employee tends to overlook other areas of the job that they may not love, right? That there's times when, as leaders in our workplace culture, we make mistakes. Those people can overlook those things, right? People can still trust because they feel this strong connection with their direct supervisor. And so that's why I want y'all to see why we're walking into the different leadership styles and how to utilize those for all of the people that work in our agencies. And so, okay, getting to the nitty gritty, right? So directing is the first leadership style, and some of you will see a correlation to these components in the quiz that you took and what you received. So in the directing style, a leader is very involved in the decision-making process and closely supervises their team. So directing style is very useful. It gets a bad rap, but it is useful, okay? It's useful when team members are taking on a new task or a new project, or they lack experience or confidence, right? Now, if we continue this leadership style after an employee or a team member has gained that confidence, right? They know what they're doing, they've learned, and we continue to use that directing style, it can be demotivating. It can be disengaging, it can be disempowering, and it can even cause them to feel micromanaged. So it has a place, right? But once an employee is more confident, once an employee has shown proficiency, we would move away from this directing style, because if we continue it, we can be micromanaging. So it has a place, but we also have to adjust, right? And that's what that situational leadership is all about. It's about recognizing when that leadership style is no longer effective. Okay, so coaching. So this leader is focused on developing an employee's skills and abilities, as well as fostering a growth mindset within their team. The leader works closely with team members, helping them to identify their strengths and weaknesses and providing them with opportunities for growth and development. So this is actually a great leadership style to move forward toward once an employee has built confidence and they're ready for more growth. And so coaching is something that we will emphasize. This is definitely a nod to our next section. Coaching happens in the Mobile Crisis Response System. Kat and I are both coaches, so I would like to say that our leadership styles lend to this direction. And also, we provide guidance on coaching inside the agencies and providers of mobile crisis. And so we help them to foster an atmosphere of coaching because we believe and it's so important. And then when we talked about earlier, that statistic around employees needing to feel like, or team members needing to feel like someone cares about their growth and development, that's what coaching is all about. So it's a very, very important component. And then we have supporting. Okay. So in this leadership style, it's known as the participating style because leaders use this approach actively with their team members in the decision-making process. So when we're making decisions and we're actively eliciting team member perspective and we're talking to them about how they feel and what they think, and they're in part of that brainstorming before decisions are made. This focuses on building positive relationships between the leader and the team members to increase their motivation and engagement. And we just talked about the data on that the boss-employee relationship has one of the strongest influences on how an employee feels about their job. So fostering that relationship is worth it, right? It builds retention. And then, Kat covered this earlier, but in this supporting leadership style, praise and recognition are used to reinforce positive behaviors and encourage that ownership of their work. So recognizing the growth that has come from that coaching, so important. All right, and then our last leadership style, which is delegating. So all you Democratic people, this is where your strengths sit, I think, based on your profiles there. But definitely using the style to allow employees to make decisions and then help other employees to grow. So it's not only about teaching, but it's not only about doing, but it's also about teaching. And so this is just an overview of those styles. But I really want to give y'all some time in your groups and to talk about this a little bit more. But we're going to cover this learning process. So this is really what I want to focus on for the rest of our time. So the learning journey or the learning process is one that really accompanies these different leadership styles. And so as we are onboarding, which we've talked about in our series, I want us to really think about which approach, which leadership style fits incoming employees versus employees who have been with us a long time, that we have built that retention and confidence in, and where these leadership styles fit. So when you're starting the learning journey, you have unconscious incompetence, meaning I don't know what I don't know. And I mean this with all the respect in the world, but any of us who have started a new job, we have felt that struggle. Like, wait, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Wait, what? There's paperwork for that? Wait a second, there's a deadline. Okay. And so we've all felt that. And so the directing leadership style would fit perfectly here because we need to provide a lot of support, and we need to be clear in that support. We don't need to be ambiguous, right? I don't know that I'm ready to talk about my growth areas. Like, they're all growth areas. Everything's a growth area right now in this stage. So coaching it's not that it wouldn't be effective, but there needs to be some directing with it, so that I can feel confident. Like, be clear with me as my supervisor about what my expectations are, as I'm going through this learning journey. And then sometimes the scariest place to be is, I know what I don't know. Okay. So this is when we move into coaching and why coaching is so important. So now I've gone through training and I'm so very aware of the fact that there's so many things that I don't understand. And so this is when we want to sit with an employee and talk about coaching. We want to talk about the fact that there are things that they're naturally strong in. And that's the point where we would do observations, we would do modeling, and then we would talk through scenarios and episodes of care. And all of those things would happen here so they can develop and move into the next phase. So we had unconscious incompetence, where we know we need to do a lot of directing because I don't know what I don't know. Then we move into conscious incompetence, which is a scary place for an employee, right? I know what I don't know, and I need coaching. I need someone to come alongside with me, and really provide that support while letting me grow, right? And letting me try some things out, and being there to talk about my strengths and weaknesses. And then we move into conscious competence. I know what I know, right? Like, I'm feeling really good about it. And so at that point, I just need a supportive supervisor who really takes the time to praise, who really takes the time to build that relationship with me, who lets me be a part of decision-making processes, who I feel connected to, who I feel respected by, and who I respect. All those things are great in that supporting style. And then we move into delegating, which is when we reach unconscious competence, which is like, I have internalized what I know and I can teach others. So exciting when we get to a point. This is where we want employees to be, right? We want employees to stay with us long enough. We want to build in retention long enough that they are doing the job naturally, right? Like, it's just kind of oozing out of them, for lack of a better visual. Okay. They have internalized the knowledge. They know it, they know how to use it, and they can teach someone else. And that's so important. And that's where we get into that track to promotion that Kat was talking about, right? Is there a stair step in which I can reach a different level now that I am at a place of unconscious competence where I can teach others and actually help in the onboarding process? These are our people where we're sending people with them to job shadow. We trust them to do their work well. And we're incorporating them, again, just like very similar to supporting, we're incorporating them into decision-making processes. These are people that we would want to foster their learning and advancement and make sure that they're able to understand and feel supported by our agency in continuing that growth and development. And feeling like we're a part of that and that we believe in them and would like them to continue. And those are our people, hopefully, who do have the opportunity for advancement inside our organizations. Any questions about this? Because we are going to let y'all into small groups and we're going to give y'all plenty of time to talk. But I know some people have seen the learning journey before, but we layered it with the situational leadership. So just understanding where people may need some support or may need us to back off a little bit as we talk about that ability to pivot and realize that there's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Any comments? Okay. Yeah, I definitely think it's a very interesting topic to think about the journey of an employee and how our leadership style can really affect retention. Because wouldn't it be It's an interesting thought, right? If you're losing people in your first 90 days, if they're not making it out of your onboarding process, really thinking about, are your supervisors, are you as a supervisor really digging into that direction? Are they having clear expectations? And maybe that's something to consider. Or maybe they're making it out of their onboarding process, but they're not staying through that coaching phase. And then you can just kind of dig in. And if people are leaving because they don't feel like there's learning and development opportunities, then that supporting and delegating phase would be something to think about as well. So, really kind of gathering that retention data to see where your trends are in retention. All right. Okay.
All right, so we're going to give you all some time to process everything that we've talked about so far in some groups with your peers. And so maybe there's some challenges that you've identified going through this, and you all can talk through some of those, or what are some things that work well for one place that might work well in another. So we're going to go into breakout rooms for around 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and debrief. Do think about or jot down some of the ideas that you come up with. We'll ask you to put them in the chat when we come back. All right, everybody should be on their way back. It was nice to see just a glimpse of some faces were on screen for your breakouts. Feel free to stay on screen as we come back together. And so I'd love for at least one person from every group, or maybe you just want to share your own insights. What are some takeaways from this training? I think it's the next slide. And what are some areas you want to grow in? What are some things you might plan to implement with your program and team? So as you are typing those out in the chat, if one brave person could unmute and share about their experience, and what are some things you might want to implement? Oh, Brenda, are you my brave person?
I could share a lot of the insights that I see would help. Of course, everything in your little presentation is real good information. And I think one of the things that helps me as a supervisor is that coaching and identifying, of course, the need of the client and based off the plans of cares that we do. And, you know, just learning from one of the hardest situations and trying to amplify, try to enhance that growth and practice it from there on. So a lot of the coaching, and it helps ground your team when they could see that they've succeeded in that one area, and then they can take that same coaching and practice and carry on.
Yeah, and I hear that coaching is also role modeling for them, how we interact with folks that we work with. Absolutely. I'm already seeing some great things in the chat, so keep them coming. And I'm hearing about that challenge of time. If we had more time in this presentation, I would ask you all and really pose this. What are some ways that we can address that challenge of time? Because that can often dictate how we approach solving a problem or getting the work done. And some quick answers, and Haylee, if you want to help me as well, might be thinking about strategies of how we're creating systems to help save us time, different kind of workarounds, and also thinking about how we manage the stress of time for ourselves as leaders. Because how we approach something, right? If I'm thinking about that text message I sent somebody on my team, hey, can you meet real quick, right? I was operating under that pressure, right? I was a little bit activated myself. And so I didn't think through, how is the other person going to see that? If I can keep myself regulated, even under the stress of time, my ability to approach things is gonna be more settled and more psychologically safe, supportive, all of that. Haley, what about you? What are some other ways you address the challenge of time?
I think that as a supervisor who I supervised quite a large team at one point, I think there were 10 or so of them. We were just in between supervisors and things. I think that it's important to, it's easy to respond to your team members, and it's always like you're putting out a fire is kind of what I think about, and really encouraging them to stick to that scheduled individual supervision if at all possible, right? And really talking about what needs to be handled right now. What does a right now thing look like? And then what is a thing we save for supervision in 2 days? And that was really important. And establishing that as a team, though, not just me dictating that, but like what feels like an emergency, what is an emergency, what do we need to handle, and having that balance there was really important because I found myself supervising all the time, like having this revolving door, right? And then also having individual supervision, which was just like somebody in my office all the time. It was all the time as a leader. And that does lend itself to directing, right? Because you're trying to get them in and out and you're telling them what to do, and you're never really taking that time for intentional coaching. And that is really important to build that self-efficacy in them so that they can handle those situations on their own the next time with the support, that supporting style later on, and then even the delegating style where they have that autonomy to do it themselves.
Yeah, so I see we're right at time. We're at noon. I'd love to see other feedback in the chat if you all are still typing or want to share. I'm happy to hang around as you all close out and complete your evaluation form.